Hey, welcome to Southern Ontario Car Culture. I'm your host, Steve. I'm here with my co-host, Leigh. How are you, Leigh?
Good, Steve. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. What's new and exciting?
Well, the weather hasn't improved yet, but yesterday we did get some sun, so got the Camaro out and took a bit of a drive, went to Timmy's.
Yeah.
That was great to see some cars get out from under their, winter storage and dust it off.
Yeah, it was cold, but we did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to get a couple of the cars out. We didn't get the whole club, but just a few.
Yeah.
So today we have another heavy hitter in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the one and only, what do we call you? What would you call you? A hot rod historian?
I'm just a car guy, and not as heavy as you let the audience believe.
Well, we have...
I'm just an automotive enthusiast, historian, passionate about all this stuff.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome the one and only Dan Bethune.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome.
It's really exciting to be here.
You're welcome.
Well, we're happy to have you, and you're going to make us look good.
Okay, well, you're already handsome. I don't know what I'm going to tell you.
There's a lot of special effects that goes on.
Oh, the filters.
The filters in post.
There's editing,
Nice.
there's filters, there's all kinds of things. We don't look as good as we do.
No.
So,
Well, thanks for joining us.
No
Appreciate it.
problem. It's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
speaking of being ready to go,
Yeah.
so this is how we start every show with who's on the other side of this desk. Who are we talking to right now?
Well, this is Dan Bethune of the St. Thomas Bethunes. Been in Canada for about 100 years. Been involved in hot rods since about 1942. I'm excited to dive into that.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right, well, here's where we go. If we want to talk about my origin story for hot rods and automotive things, it goes back a long ways. It goes back before I was born. My grandfather, Bethune, Wes Bethune, he worked in Detroit in the 30s, GM Powertrain, I think it was,
Okay.
making gears and things for cars. He wasn't necessarily a car guy, but he was a mechanical guy, and he
Tool
has...
and die?
Not even. But I do have his micrometer to this day in my shop. It brings me good karma, good luck. But in 1942, in the depths of World War II, he actually was working in Toronto. And he had acquired, actually, and this is the key part of the story, is he actually had a 1932 Cadillac Roadster with a V16. And I don't know if you can picture it in your mind. It's 100 feet long, massive hood, massive engine, removable top, and very high-end car. Even had like a golf club door on the passenger side behind the passenger door. About 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet square. I have a great picture of him standing on the sidewalk next to it with a golf bag over his shoulder.
Nice.
Anyways, the truth behind the car was a little bit different. In 1942, due to the war, there was gas rationing. So a car like a V16 Cadillac, although priceless 10 years earlier, was nearly worthless in the marketplace. You could buy it for a song.
Of course.
Because you couldn't get gasoline for it.
The fuel economy would have been just atrocious.
That was also a thing, yeah. Yeah, it used all of it. And then some. But he worked at a factory in Toronto, something Enterprises. Anyway, what they manufactured at that time was gun sights for rifles and things. And my future grandmother actually was working there too. And she saw this guy with his cool slick back hair. And more importantly, saw the V16 Cadillac and thought, that guy's loaded. So they started dating because she thought he was loaded. And it wasn't until after they were an item that he realized that he had no money.
You spent it on the car.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't cost much to get the car because it was, again, worthless. So they were married for decades and decades and decades. The car, though, it didn't last very long with them. They couldn't afford to drive it, of course. They actually abandoned it in Hamilton in a garage and walked away.
Oh, yeah?
Which in hindsight, you're like, that's like a 7-figure Barry Jackson kind of car. But at the time, it was worthless. So they walked away. And I only learned recently through the internet, through my webpage, Hot Rods in History by Dan, that one of the people on that page says, I remember a Cadillac V16 Roadster that had been converted into a wrecker in the late 40s at a circle track near Toronto. And, there couldn't have been very many. It's circumstantial. I don't have VIN numbers or evidence, but it's a romantic kind of story where the car wound up being involved in circle track racing as far as dragging wreck cars off around 1948 to 50, that time period. Anyway, so that's how they met. And so the bigger point is, without the Cadillac V16, I wouldn't be here because she would never talk to him. So the Cadillac, I'm going to segue from the Cadillac story, which is the origin. So then my father was born, Dan Bethune. And they set up roots in a little town called Drumbo, Ontario, just south of Woodstock.
I know Drumbo.
You know Drumbo?
We drove through there last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bigger now than it used to be. I'm going to take you back to 1953 in Drumbo. It was just an intersection, and I believe the intersection was gravel, and the population was probably a couple hundred. And there's my dad. He's like 7 or 8 years old. Picture Tom Sawyer, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Summertime, and so he's sitting on the stoop in front of one of the stores, and at the end of the Drumbo, there's a hill and a bridge, and he can hear a rumbling over the bridge, and he can see a cloud of smoke. And up over the hill and the bridge comes this Model A. Fast as could be, flying over. And as they get into Drumbo city limits, one of the tires blows. Comes to a skidding stop right in front of my dad, who's just sitting there. Nothing goes on in Drumbo. He's just sitting there waiting for something to happen. But this is what's happening. This is a life-changing event for him. So my dad's sitting there. He's seeing this car slide to a stop, and the two guys that are in the car jump out, like a NASCAR pit stop. One guy has a wrench. One guy has a jack. One guy goes to the back, and he pulls the spare tire off the back, while the other guy is jacking it up. They change the wheel. Like record time, put it on, put the other wheel on the back, and they're gone in a cloud of smoke. And there's my dad sitting there, gobsmacked.
What have I just seen? What was
Exactly. In a town of Drumbo where nothing happens, there's no internet. What do you do? Wait for things like this to happen. But that was a turning point for him. He says, I will one day have a Model A. So fast forward to late 60s. He's a young man, about 20 years old, and he finds one, but his dad won't let him buy it. He says, no, you're not bringing that to my house. So another decade passes, and in 1977, he finds a Model A two-door, actually it's not very far from here, Union, Ontario. And he brings it home, and he has this plan of making a hot rod like he envisioned since 1953 or 55. But the car was really solid mint, and so he didn't have the heart to actually do any modifications. So he restored it. So he put a pin in that dream for 2 years while he restored it. And then he got another one, which was much rougher, found it north, like near Barrie. And that was the first hot rod. And by this time, I'm on the scene, right? And I'm involved. And I remember getting that car. I remember sweeping out the leaves and stuff from the inside of the body. It was basket case, but it was a big education for me. I'm 9 years old. And so through the 80s, he finishes that car, his second Model A. And then we started a third one actually for my sister, because she had seen by that time American Graffiti and thought, I want a coupe. I know the American Graffiti coupe is 32. Model A's are much easier to find, and even back then were much more affordable.
Yeah.
Just because of the volume. I think they made 1.5 million Model A's.
Got it. Your dad's car is a Model A.
29 Model A.
29.
Yep.
Got it. Yep.
Burgundy and black fenders.
Burgundy and black, the rolling tuxedo, I like to call it.
Yeah.
I remember when that car, before he bought it, it was yellow.
Yes, bright yellow. It sat on truck tires. It had no fenders.
Yes.
Well, it had fenders, but I wouldn't call them fenders. And yeah, she was a rough girl, but it looks like it looks now.
Yeah, he did a beautiful job.
Yeah, it stands up well. It's sitting in my garage right now, and
Was it really?
yeah,
That's cool.
It's temporary home.
Winter storage.
Yep.
That's cool. That's really cool.
That's my inheritance. Is that thing too? It's
Well, that's where this story is ending.
Okay.
Because my dad went through a couple Model A's, and then he's had a 33.3 window, and he's had 56 Mercury. He's bounced all around, but he wound up actually landing on another Model A coupe that they found it in Old Autos, late 90s, I think. It was a restored one. And they saw it on a Tuesday or a Saturday morning and said, let's just go get it. So they just went and got it. And they drove it for a number of years. Original. I think this is his fifth one by then. He'd obviously kept true to that story in Drumbo and his love for that. But then after a few years, it started to get loose mechanically, brakes, kingpins, and things. So he thought it's time to do something different. So what he did was he actually did a whole chassis upgrade. And I found him a flathead in Woodstock, which he had rebuilt with all the performance parts of the time, Edelbrock aluminum heads, Fenton headers. So underneath mechanically, it was all new and fresh, but they never changed the look of the outside of the car. The car had been painted in '62 in a barn, so that patina was legit. You see a lot of people doing artificial patina now, but this is the real deal.
Yeah.
So they finished it, and they actually drove that to the Pacific Ocean and back. They went to Northwest Juice Days in it and had all kinds of great adventures. And I got a call from them. They're in their late 70s now, my mom and dad. So I got a call in November, December, out of the blue. Do you want the Model A? Right?
Right?
I said, ultimately, how about now? Sure.
Okay.
What are you going to say?
What's the catch?
yeah.
There isn't. He just, being in their late 70s, they want to move on to something that's a little easier.
Okay.
Easier to drive, easier to ride in, a little smoother. So it's now in my shop, but it is not there in storage. It is, I am the caretaker of it. So it's a tremendous honor. Which segues into the next, this is the narcissist in me. Here's my portion of the story, and that's maybe where we get to today. Obviously growing up in this automotive thing, and we were a member of the Southern Ontario Street Rod Association starting in 1978 to about 1984. And all through this time, I'm learning things and trying to figure out what I like. And I remember Rod and Custom magazine came out with, in the late 80s, they had an edition that just listed all the fiberglass bodies that were available. Because by the time you got to the late 80s, a lot of the steel was gone, or it was incredibly priced, horribly priced. And
That's why ours has fiberglass fenders on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I remember looking, it was probably 1988. We were going through this. My dad and I were just looking at all the body types and trying to figure out, what do I want to build? Because ultimately I was going to. I arrived on one page on 1932 Ford Victoria, which is like a cross between a coupe and a sedan. It has like a small little bustle on the back and not really a usable back seat. So it's sort of like a Camaro.
Okay.
Where, a back seat.
There, but it's not there.
But it's not.
A back seat for, in appearance only, but it isn't really functional.
Yeah.
And so there we are. That's what I want, because I think that's beautiful. And it was different than everybody else's. And there was a lot of fiberglass things going on at the time. A lot of 3-window coupes, 32s, 33, 34s. So I decided that was what I was going to do. So actually I did a drawing. I stuck it on the wall. I still have it. It's a big cardboard drawing of this 32 with a chop, with bobbier fenders, with the stance that I wanted, with the wheels that I wanted, with the... Actually, I drew some graphics, some scallops on the side, because in '88 that was kind of cool. And so I stuck it on the wall and thought, that's what I'm going to do. So I go to college, while in college, it was a co-op program, so I was able to do work in between classes, in between sessions. So I was actually making enough money that I could start building this 32. So I ordered a frame from Chassis Engineering in Iowa, and I ordered this body from Downs Manufacturing in Michigan, and got them to my house. And when people hear fiberglass, they think the term kit car.
They were hugely popular in Australia
Yeah.
in the 80s,
This
70s. Yeah.
Anyone who's ever, I refer to it more as like a component car, because you have a bare body and a bare frame, can make everything else. So I built the chassis, built the interior. Charlie Birdsey actually taught me how to do sculpted tweed interior in the early 90s. So it was sculpted tweed. I really started in earnest in 94, finished it in time for Autorama in 97. And it sat the way I had drawn that drawing. Back fenders I shortened as I had in the drawing. I didn't put the scallops on because 10 years had passed, so the scallops weren't quite as cool as they had been before. But I remember being there, and the first time I ever drove that car was actually onto a tilt node, because it was February in Ontario, a salty, snowy mess. Yeah. And it was Love Days, actually, who brought it to London. And I drove it off of it, and I drove around the Western Fairgrounds inside the buildings. That was my first couple feet in that car. And I parked it right across, actually, from Ron Box. I don't know if we've ever talked about Ron Box. He had unveiled his white Cadillac, his 58 Cadillac, at the same time. So I was right across from him. And that would actually pay me dividends later with credibility with Ron Box.
So this was for a car show?
Yeah, Autorama.
Okay.
So London Autorama, it's similar to any like Motorama in Toronto.
But here up in London rather than
Toronto. So I mean,
Okay.
it's a smaller scale.
Yeah.
But still great fun.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled to actually have a hot rod of my own after all this time. I'd had other cars before, but when it's something you make yourself, it's a different level.
Yeah.
So I was really excited, and it was sort of a passing of the torch a little bit, where Dan Bethune's kid had put something together that kind of stuck together. So that was fun. Yeah. But the car taught me a lot, though, not just in the building, which I enjoyed, but I remember taking it for the first drive, and I drove it to Sparta and back. And by the time I got back, it was a thrill, obviously, and adrenaline, and all the feelings, all the things. By the time I got back, I thought, okay. But after that, it was like, you take it to the show, you do the shows, go to the cruise nights. People like it, people don't like it, whatever. We get talking about it, but I felt like I was resting on my laurels. You know what I mean? Because I'd finished it. I wasn't doing anything anymore. And as I drove it, I started to think, and just through experience, what did I do right? What would I do differently if I had a chance to do it over again? I didn't want to build the car twice. So after about 3 years, I sold it. Okay. My dream car. We talk about regrets, and there's no regrets in selling that car, because there were a couple things. I mean, people who don't build, or even people with different tastes, would see it and go, that's all I'd need.
Yeah.
But I found that I didn't like the paint anymore, paint quality. I hadn't color sanded and buffed it, and it was acrylic enamel, which you cannot color sand and buff. Mistake I made. I would have narrowed the rear end about 1.5 inches. The tires weren't quite right where the tires in the back where the fenders were kind of suited how you would build it in 95. But after I lived with it a couple of years, I thought, I wish those tires were in just a little bit more.
Yeah.
It wasn't like 1976 where tires were out that far past the fenders, but it wasn't where I wanted it. Those two things were just enough for me to be like, it's time to move on. So I actually sold it to a guy in New York. I don't know where the car is now. I think it's in the American South.
Okay.
But I went, and this is where the Ron Box story comes in, or we collide a little bit there, where he had seen my 32, and he had acquired a 1954 two-door sedan, a restoration project that was nearly done, just needed paint. And he had picked it up at an auction near Chatham. And R&M Restorations, or Sotheby's, had done a lot of the work on it, so it was quite a nice car. And he was hanging on to it, and he didn't necessarily want to build it himself because he had a whole fleet of things to do. His palette was full. So he was looking around to see who was worthy of passing it on. And he remembered me from my 32. And we had obviously met each other since then at car shows and things like that. This kid knows what he's doing. So I got the opportunity to buy it, so I did. And the reason why I wanted to do that car was from a 50 Ford, and this is not to offend anyone out there at all, because we all have different tastes. A 50 Ford sedan, for me, from the belt line down, is a beautiful car. It was the first post-war Ford car that didn't have external fenders.
Right.
The clay model for that, actually, the guy who designed it, he actually baked it in his oven, in his kitchen at home. His wife must have been delighted. Anyways, but from the belt line up, it looked like a checker cab. It was really tall. Okay. And apologies to anyone who loves them. I'm not throwing shade. What I wanted to do is I wanted to chop it. And chopping a 54 is like chopping a Mercury from the same period, where it's very common to do. But I always was troubled with the C-pillar, the last pillar, where the back window goes. Because the easier way to chop something like that is to actually lean that forward. You chop everything else, but you actually, in the C-pillar, you cut up the C-pillar and across, and you lean it forward, and it kind of makes a fastback sort of roof line, which is appealing to most people. To me, my eye, I think they look a little heavy, just because there's a lot of C-pillar there versus what the original would be. And I remember seeing
much kind of haunch or paunch.
There was just too much C-pillar, just too much material there, right? So I remember Ron Box had actually built a 50 a couple years earlier. It was yellow. And I first saw it in Pinafore Park, actually, in St. Thomas. And I originally saw it, I was like 700 feet away. And I was able to see it drive across, and I could just see the profile of it. So it sat really cool. But that back roof and that C-pillar looked different to me.
Okay.
And so when he stopped, I asked him, what's going on here? Because this is different. And he said, actually, Ron Box had built a similar one in 1958. It was in the Rodden Custom Little Pages. It was white. And what he had done is he actually removed that back window altogether off the car, and all the metal around it, done his chop, but then he's reinstalled the back window in a new spot, forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he didn't lean it, he took it off and then reinstalled it, and so he had to put new metal in from the deck lid to the back of the roof.
Yeah.
But he had created a roof profile that looked like a factory roof profile, other than the fact that it was shorter, like a coupe, and down. I'm like, that is what I want to do. And so when I bought the car from Ron, I said, I'm going to, no offense to you, I'm not trying to copy you, but I'm going to do a similar roof chop to your yellow one. He said, cool. He actually gave me a photo album. This is my build book of that car.
Wow.
This is how I did that roof. So I put that book on my workbench. I wrote his phone number on my workbench right in the wood. And he was like my hotline, my 411, or my 911, I guess, if I ever got into trouble. But I studied the pictures so hard, and I thought about it so much that I didn't actually call him more than about 3 times, I think, in that whole build.
Nice.
Chopped the top in a weekend. And the way that goes is when you're going to chop something that's that nice, you got to have some guts, and you got to be sure, more importantly than anything else. The guts is easy, because if you don't like how it looks right now, it's easy to cut it, because it's like, anything I do is going to make it better.
Yeah. That's your commitment at that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, in order to get a chop right, though, from my perspective, the chassis has to be sitting right. So I had to lower the car first, because if you chop the top and don't know where it's going to sit relative to the ground, you can lose your proportion, lose your way. Okay, so I lowered the front 6 inches with some drop spindles from Fat Man, and the rear I dropped I think 4.5. So it's like 1.5 inch sort of stance front to back. Because Ron, his car was like not tail dragger, but it was level.
Yeah.
Like that's his style. I went a little bit of hot rod.
Yeah.
Right. So I had 1.5 inch front to back. And I also, when I was going to chop the top, he had actually chopped the back more than the front so that the upper and lower window openings were parallel.
Okay.
Ford actually designed them on an angle, and you can't tell when they're this far apart.
No.
But when you bring them together, all of a sudden it becomes clear.
Yeah.
And so my commitment to the car was that I was going to maintain that angle because I thought it looked cool. So that was the difference. But yeah, I studied Ron's pictures. I was ready to go. It was a Thursday night. I sat there in my garage with the car with the hacksaw in hand because I did it all by hand because I wanted to go slow.
Yeah.
And I just sat there. I had 3 Budweisers, sat in a lawn chair, looked at it, and just the passenger door. And I cut just the window sash of the passenger door, and I took 3.5 inches out of it.
Yeah.
And I just with the 3M green tape, I just taped it in place and sat back down and had another 3 beers. Just study. Because you can undo it, but you don't want to go too far.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to waste your time not going far enough. Yeah. So I studied it, and I decided, okay, that's it. So on Friday after work, right through to Sunday night, nonstop chop. And by the end of Sunday, he came by. The back window was still in the factory spot. I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
But the rest of the roof was all tacked in place where it was going to be. And so over the next 2 weeks, I ultimately took that back window off, put it in the new spot, trimmed the roof how I should to get it in, and then I made new metal across, and there it was. But it wound up being great. I felt that it gave me some credibility as far as being able, because the 32 had been chopped from downs. So I didn't have to do the chops. So, I mean, I sort of established myself as someone who could make something that had some stance, some great detail. I mean, everything was detail painted. Like the drive shaft was as nice as the fender as far as paint quality. Like it was everything, right? So that was cool. But I hadn't chopped it. So I thought I should chop something to be legit in my own mind.
Yeah.
But when I finished the chop, then I had everything else to finish. So I actually dove into some of the R&M work that had been done. And it wasn't kind of the level that I sort of wanted to be able to do. So I actually replaced some of the things myself, quarter panels, things like that. Bought an English wheel, inspired by Jesse James.
I just bought an English wheel, actually.
Did you?
Oh, I'm terrified of the thing. I've been out in the garage messing with it, and I'm like, I'll get there, right?
You look different to me, and I was trying to figure out what it was. And is that you have now purchased an English wheel? You have gone past the point of no return.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yep.
The English wheel is a sort of an old world sheet metal forming tool, popularized by people like Jesse James on Motorcycle Mania 25 years ago. I'd seen him before in a Street Rodder magazine, but when you could actually see someone doing it in motion on TV, it became really clear, this isn't some sorcery, some black magic. This is actually something that you could do. And so I started diving into that. And so I replaced panels in the car on the 50 that way. Detailed the engine. It was a flathead. So cleaned up the firewall. Did a lot of the custom tricks. Hit all the bolts in the bumpers. All these kind of things. But during that time, I also was married and I had young children. So I wasn't working at it as hard as I should, or not should, but I made other choices, other priorities. So the car sat there for a long time. And I ultimately sold it 2019, and it was 90% done. 90% done. And I actually went to a gentleman in Orlando. But then I thought, I want to use these English wheels and this sheet metal things that I'm learning in a bigger way. Yeah. So I decided to build a 1927 Ford Roadster. So similar to 1994, I grabbed a fiberglass body, but my vow to myself was I'm going to build the frame, the whole suspension, the hood, the grill shell, the A-pillars, the seats, everything. And so that's what I'm engaged in now. And it's a blast. Yeah. It's a blast just to make that stuff. But that is the long-winded version of the story of how we go from V16 Cadillac to here we are today, where I have this 27 Ford that I've largely made myself. Yeah. And then there's Dad's Model A sitting there. And it's a little bit of pressure with that one because that one, has a history and I didn't build it. And so I've done a couple little things to it this winter just to make it a little more my taste. But it's a great car.
You feel more of a custodian for that one rather than...
Yeah. And actually, honestly, before I took possession, I said, am I allowed to change anything? And he said, I'm done with it. Do what you want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've done a couple things because my dad's a great chassis guy, but he's also very historical. These Model A's have a sentimental value to him, right? He remembers
From
the
that
story.
memory,
He remembers the Drumbo story, right?
Exactly.
Whereas I don't have that. My sentimental Model A connection goes back to 1978. Yeah, so I'm more like, I'm not sentimental about any of this stuff. I'm just about what's hard. That's what I want to do, is what's hard, right? 32 was hard at the time for me. Then I wanted to chop the shoebox. That was hard.
Yeah.
And then I knew how to do it. And so this 27 Roadster, I've never made a hood or a grill shell or these things before. Let's do that. The challenge is what I enjoy. So in conclusion, I have found that the hot rod hobby for me isn't the car shows. And it isn't taking it to win something or to get accolades from somebody else. It is completely intrinsic and personal for me. Yeah. Whereas people ask when the 27 is going to be done, and I say it's done when it's done. I don't care how long it takes. Because every time you make a part from scratch or you get something that fits or bolts together or looks the way you want it to look, like the top of my head tingles. There's some kind of intrinsic reward, and that is why I do it. Which is why I haven't had a car to take to cruise night in over 20 years. So I'm barely even a car guy.
You're a maker.
I use the term builder, but it's exactly what it is. Exactly. A normal person, because I don't pretend to think that what I do is a normal thing to do. A normal person wants to get something. Let's get it on the road and let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite, where I don't want to get on the road. I'm already having the fun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's sort of how my perspective is.
Well, we have a fellow club member that's similar, right?
Okay.
Like he's got more cars you can shake a stick at. He's a big Olds guy.
Okay.
And he's got several of these Oldsmobiles in this garage. And he's working in, there's one particular that's been taking forever. And we've all it's going to be such a cool car. But we've all been riding them. Like, when are you going to get it done? Finish it. He's like, and he'll flat out tell you, he's like, I don't really care how long it takes. He's like, I enjoy the build.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And,
100%.
A lot of my hobbies are the same. It's about the creation of the thing. And if it takes, even if you never finish it, it doesn't matter. It's the work you're doing, and it's the next step. And then you think, oh, now I can do that differently. And so, yeah.
My stuff leaves my shop so infrequently, my neighbors don't even know that I'm building stuff out there. Mm-hmm. I have a shop out behind my house, and the actual garage door is actually screwed shut to the wood. So that with vapor barrier as well, so that it's always dry. There's a lot of bare metal in there. In the summertime, the dehumidifier will run till May till September. But yeah, it's because if you had a hard day at work and you go out there and you make something, or maybe you've been working on it for 3 or 4 days, but you put a couple holes in it, you bolt it on, and it fits. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing for me.
Satisfying.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you get a car that's like the 32, my 32, not to discount what it was, because I think it was a good car. But when it was over, it was over. I thought, well, now what am I going to do? I don't know how to play baseball. You know what I mean? I can't ice skate. I can't play hockey. Right. I'm a victim of hot rod upbringing.
That's a stereotype.
Which means, well, it is sort of, but it's true in my case a little bit. I knew how to weld at a very young age.
Right.
I knew what proper stance looked like. That is attributed to Dan Bethune as far as teaching a lot of that. Although our tastes are a lot different in build style, I learned it from him. So without him, I don't do anything else. So, I mean, with the 32, the chassis build was stuff I knew from him. But when it got time to actually make an interior or choose stance or to modify the rear fenders, I wanted the back fenders to actually be abbreviated and bring the little curved part at the end, move it up. I think it was 6 inches, just so it flowed nicer, because the back of the car was abbreviated as well. So it made better aesthetic sense. That's just me.
Yeah.
That's sort of my superpower, I suppose. So with my Roadster, the frame build was, again, sort of straightforward. But hey, let's make a hood. Hey, let's make a grill shell. And my dad comes over once in a while to see it, and it's always like a final exam when he comes by to see, because he's paid his dues, and he comes over, and if he likes it, it's cool. But if he doesn't like it, he's going to tell you. Yeah. And I appreciate that, because the honesty is honesty, and that's it's worth everything.
Absolutely.
And so if he likes it, I mean, it's like, yeah, I did good. Or if he doesn't like it, sometimes it's like, yeah, we have different tastes, but sometimes it's like, you're right, that isn't good enough. Let me go back to that. Actually, my wife is even the same way. She's been around this long enough to know. She looks at something and goes, you can do better than that. Again, partially why it's not finished, but it's good. I think it's a good car.
That's the beauty, I think, of this hobby is that you're taking not just one skill like metalworking or electronics for some of the engine related work or mechanical work on the engine, but you've got the whole interior side of things. You're doing upholstery, stitching.
I often say, and I mean no disrespect to a restorer or anybody who does or who buys a car, but there's nothing harder than building a car in the automotive world. My father-in-law is building a Model T coupe, actually, and he's a certified mechanic. But he has said to me, I have often changed the shock, but it's never occurred to me, where should I put the shock bracket? And that is the difference, right? Yeah. You have to put the shock bracket in a certain way that it's going to work, but also you need to restrict, especially with a low car like a 32, 33, you have to restrict that wheel travel, because if it goes too high, it'll take your fender off. Yeah. If you got it sitting low. So a lot of times, and it's sort of a dirty little secret, but sometimes we make the shocks, they act as a bump stop or a restriction. You know what I mean? Yeah. With my 32, I put the fender up into the fender when I was building it and backed it off by an inch and made the bracket. Yeah. Like that's where it should stop. And I mean, this is the minutia of building something, but that is also the reason why when you put something together and it works.
Kind of the ghetto engineering.
Sure. Yeah. If you haven't done it, you can't understand what it takes to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not obvious to figure out some of these things necessarily.
No. Yeah. So I mean, I've never been interested in doing a restoration just because there's no artistic license if you're not going to change it. Full respect to the restoration folks, which outnumber me, probably 20 to 1. Their passion goes in a different direction, whether it's sentimental or just being accurate to how Detroit made it. But I've spent a lot of part of my career actually working and launching new cars, so I know how that sausage is made as well, and it isn't always as much of a fairy tale as it seems to be.
Is it fair to say that Southern Ontario has a deeper kind of connection to the car culture, the car scene, because of the proximity to Detroit? And
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the population distribution in Canada, 50% of Canadians live in the 401 corridor.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
50% of us. So
that's crazy.
I remember in the 80s when we were going to shows locally here and people would say, you should go to a U.S. show because some of the cars are unbelievable. And you think, well, why? But then I think in 87, we started going to places like Columbus and Indianapolis just to see what they were building there. And our eyes were opened to the quality level. And I often thought, why is there such impressive stuff going together there? But it is population. For every Canadian, there's 10 Americans. So you're going to have, although being a hot rod guy is a weird thing and we're a minority, there aren't a lot of us. There's 10 times more of us strange folks, So you're bound to have, one guy who does something you've never seen before. So actually, my eyes were really open. And if you look at my 32 that I built in the pre-internet age, it was built largely, in hindsight, it was built in the Ohio style. Mm-hmm. Because that's where actually some of my favorite cars in that time period were from there. Now with the internet and with Facebook and YouTube, hot rods aren't regional anymore. Yeah. Right? If somebody's building something in Oklahoma today that I think's cool, I'm going to probably see it. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to influence what I'm doing here in Southern Ontario. And then someone in Norway is going to see it. Or someone in Australia is going to see it. Yeah. Because the world has become tiny. And all of us hot rod guys, of which there aren't many, guys and gals, we're seeing what everybody's building.
Yeah, it's like I'm super drawn to Las Vegas, right? What's going on in Las Vegas is just like I'm glued to it right now. You know? Okay. Like more or less the rat rod scene, stuff like that. But you're absolutely right. You're not focused on a small area anymore because you can see so much.
Yeah. I mean, if you were just from a small town in Southern Ontario, you were influenced by your buddies or what you saw on the main drag on Saturday night. Yeah. But if you could go 100 miles in any direction and see something you'd never seen before, bring that back to your town, all of a sudden you look like you're a pioneer, right? And my 32 was like that. It was like, hey, that's Ohio. It isn't far, but it's farther than we normally go.
Mm-hmm. And I've definitely noticed that in, like you, I start a project, I get to a certain point where I've achieved what I've wanted to achieve out of doing it, and then I'll be, okay, I need the next new thing. My brain craves new.
Yeah, once you get past the passionate part, it winds up being work.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at when I was first searching for an actual classic car, it was easy because, I drive an electric SUV. Let's get into something that's a classic car for the region. And so the 97 Camaro was an appropriate fit. and it had some childhood connectivity, nostalgia, Tom Selleck,
Okay.
Knight Rider, that kind of movie
All right.
influences. I love having the top off and just being able to slide in and down. It's a lot easier on the hips. But for the next car, I've been looking, what do I want to do next? Put the Camaro up on Facebook for a stupid price. Maybe somebody will buy it, maybe they won't. But I'm finding that as you say, the Southern Ontario car flavors, they're all the same. Everything's, it's either a C10 or it's very cookie cutter. You can't find something unique.
And you were worried about offending someone, huh?
Right. No, I don't mean that in a
I'm
negative
sorry, this is
way.
over. We can't talk anymore.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I'm looking for something that's unique that I can sort of stand out with.
It's hard to be original.
Yes.
Let me segue into this.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places to go actually is Detroit Autorama. Mm-hmm. But you guys would never want to go with me. I'm warning you now. Because I don't go to look at everything.
Yeah.
I go to learn. I go to see something I can't do.
Right.
Because that is my next thing. That's
Always
always
your inspiration.
It's the quest for whatever, knowledge or a skill or something. Yeah. So I often, when I go there, a normal person will go up and down the aisles. I do a cursory walk of the room, upstairs and downstairs, to see, I'm coming back to see that later, right? And at the end of the day, I have probably looked at 8 cars, but each one I've spent like 45 minutes. And each one I've sought out the person who built it or the team who built it. Oftentimes it's the team. And talk to the people who actually did it. I'm not interested in the owner. Like if it's a professionally built car that costs, who cares what it costs? Let's talk to the people who actually made that fender.
Well, you had a couple good points. This is a great example, that the Mustang this year at Motorama. Okay, I walked by it and I'm like, oh, that's a cool Mustang. I didn't take into account until I read the article you did about the detail.
See, that's cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. I have a Facebook page called Hard in History by Dan where it's a stream of consciousness sometimes, but it's me sharing historical anecdotes, technical stories, current events sometimes. And that Mustang is an example in Toronto a month ago now.
Yeah, back in March.
It was an 86 Mustang. Okay. And I was born in 71, so I was like 15. But when I met my wife, that's what she drove, was an 86 Mustang. So automatically I'm sort of drawn to it. But you can tell, not after just a cursory glance, that there's something special going on here. So I found the guy who built it, right? Not the owner, because the owner was there. The owner heard me talk and says, hey, you should talk to this guy who built it. And I'm sorry that the name escapes me. They're a Canadian company. I think they're in Windsor. But I mean, the car was at Cobo Hall as well in Detroit. But it's an 86 Mustang where they have done a lot of 3D printing. They've done a lot of hand fabrication, steel, like the front fascia from the belt line down was all hand fabricated out of steel, but they didn't make it obvious. They painted it to match. Then they had a splitter in the front, splitter in the back. They remade the moldings that go down the door by scanning and 3D printing them from they had one good piece. And I mean, those were junk when they were new, but they get all wavy over time. And they had just gone over the top. I mean, the engine was a crazy engine with enormous horsepower, but that's not really where my interests lie as much. So we looked at the tailpipes and the coating they had on the tailpipes. Why does it look like gunmetal? Why does it kind of have a sheen to it? This is the kind of thing that interests me. So come full circle. When you come to a car show with Dan, we're going to look at a handful of cars, but we're going to deep dive and learn some things. And at the end, offer, handshake. Good job, man. This is really awesome. And that's what I go for.
From talking about a really, fancy Mustang that's in the front room of Motorama, I want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
And talk about patina.
Okay.
How do you feel about patina?
I'm going to talk about things like monoculture and personal taste. And it goes back to me to the 90s. Because when I built my car in the 90s, a lot of the cars that were being built at that time looked the same. We all were aiming for the same thing, whether it's aiming for what Boyd was doing or what they were doing in Ohio. But there started to be, and I think it coincided with the rise of the internet. There wanted being a backlash to that, where it's like, I'm not going to spend that much money on this car. I'm going to spend this much money, and maybe it's not as big of an investment, and I'm going to go in a different direction. At the same time, you also had people pushed back against build aluminum, and we're like, I'm going to build just traditional, right? I'm going to use bias ply tires, and so it's not going to steer very well. It's not going to road course, but that's what I want. And I think for the past 25 years, we have had a splintering of the hobby. The same way we've had a splintering of music and culture. Yeah. I think we owe a lot of it to the internet. I remember, you ever been on the ham, the hokey ass message board? It's a U.S. based.
Oh yeah.
And and it's been around for 25 years. A guy named Ryan started it, and they really beat the drum for traditional.
Okay.
And anti-billet, anti-Boyd, anti-Foos. They were going in a different direction there, and they were going to do it. They were going to build rides that didn't age out, or they weren't trendy. They were traditional.
Yeah.
And we still see them now. I mean,
And when you say anti-foos, talking about chip foos.
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, and
that's just a styling as opposed to.
yeah, it's not slander in any direction. But what I mean is, chip foos will build a car where usually there is no limit to the budget, and everything must be perfect, because he's always competing for a Riddler award, or he's always after an Amber award. His clientele know that he can get them that. Yeah. And that got a lot of press 25 years ago, and the Learning Channel, Discovery Channel did a lot of coverage of that. I see the patina and the traditional as a backlash to that, because not everybody wants that, or not everybody has the means to acquire that. But if you still want to follow the passion, the automotive passion, you do it within your means or to your style. So if you have a patina car, well, it used to be even in the 90s when fiberglass was sort of king for hot rods, but there were the people who were like, it's got to be steel or it's not real. And my response often was, it isn't more fun. No. If you're going down the road at 60, or you're cruising the drag, it's not more fun in a steel car than a glass car. Mm-hmm. It's just my glass car took me a year less time to build. Yeah. If you're cruising down the road or cruising the drag this evening in a patina car versus one that has shiny paint, it's not more fun or less fun.
Well, it just looks different.
It's a personal expression. It goes back to the artistic perspective of what this whole hobby is about, right? Yeah. Which is why maybe I'm not so restoration minded, because I don't know who you are by looking at the car you restored. Yeah. But I know who you are if your car has patina or not, or stance or not, chopped or not. It tells me who you are. Like my dad's Model A is not chopped. I can assure you within the next 18 months it will be.
But that's an expression
of me.
Your taste.
But his unchop is an expression of his taste. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And no one is greater than the other, but we all bring different things to the table.
Yeah. That's honestly spot on, because so where I was going with this, what I was asking was, obviously my car's sitting outside, you've seen it.
It's a beautiful car.
Thanks. But that is a budget build hot rod.
Yeah.
And you're spot on, man. When you're driving it, you're getting the same feeling.
Yeah.
Right? And the old man's Model A is, it's getting a little bit dated now, but it's, you're a shiny car. You don't want to scratch it. My car, my kids sit on the trunk at cruise night and eat fries on it, and we enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
You could actually argue it's more fun because you don't worry about someone touching.
That's exactly right. That was my angle. And I tried to build the car to a period look that I wanted. I think I got what I was going for.
Mm-hmm. I'd say so. I built that car in a trailer park. It's a budget. We didn't have a lot of money. We did what we could. We built something cool that we enjoy.
Beer money, as you.
Yeah, that's why we call the car beer money, right?
Yeah.
Are you having fun?
I'm having a blast.
Then what else matters?
That's exactly right.
Right.
But my favorite thing is when I park that car at a car show, and somebody will walk by the most beautiful, perfect car to come over and look at the old rat, right?
It is what everybody relates to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people are put off by this $4 million car in Detroit, right? And they won't. They'll actively walk by it to look at something that's different.
They see it as unobtainable.
Sure.
As well.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I don't see there's any, and maybe I have some kind of mental block. I don't think there's anything that I can't attain.
I mean,
I don't know why I think that way.
supercar.
It probably comes from confidence, from my parents or whatever, or a chemical imbalance in my brain. But I feel if somebody made that fender, then I can make that fender.
Right.
I just need to find out how. Mm-hmm. And there's someone there in this building who did it. Yeah. So show me that guy. And
when I said unobtainable, I was kind of in the context of the the traditional punter looking at cars at a car show, they'll walk straight past a $4 million show car and go to something like Beer Money.
But
I could do that.
I could do that.
You get both though, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think if I was making a point, there was the big budget cars and the lower budget cars like mine. I find where they find common ground is the creativeness.
Yes.
Right.
The styling.
Which I really love because, you walk up to these guys that are building these beautiful cars, and just like you just said, you're going to find all these cool things they've done, how they did it, and it's like a fascinating story. And then you're going to get the same thing from the guys in the rat rod era or anything that have come up with something creative. Creativity is the name of the game, right?
If you're doing a restoration, then certainly not.
Yeah.
But we're talking about hot rods here, absolutely. But I also feel if you have 10 people walk into a car show, those 10 people bring their own life experiences and their own biases and perspectives and the things they love, things they don't. If someone's parent had a car like yours, they're going to automatically be drawn. There's that emotional attachment to it, whether they're a car person or not. Actually, non-car people are actually more fascinating to watch at a car show than actual car people.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That is true.
Because they don't know what they're looking at, but they know what speaks to them.
I spent all 3 days at Motorama just leaning against my car with my back turned to the crowd listening to, because you're going to get all kinds of comments coming my way. And I love it. You get some that you're like, oh, that's neat. And you got other ones like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah. There's also the condition where if there's a gentleman there with a wife or a girlfriend, they also will try and make sure that they come off as being very wise automotively. Yeah. And often I get the biggest kick out of that because they'll talk about things and they'll make things up and pass them off as fact and just to be impressive.
Yep.
But that's certainly a comical part sometimes.
Whole world. The other thing I want to touch on before we get any further, so we talked a little about patina.
Yeah.
That brings me to my next point I want to talk about.
Okay.
Is raw metal.
Raw metal.
So how do you feel when you're working with raw metal? You're building something that only you see in your head. And you're fabricating to make that a reality. When I'm doing it now, you and I aren't the same caliber. You're far above what I can.
You're
do.
extra kind and wrong.
I do what I can, but I really feel like we're all learning at different rates.
You and I can spend 90 minutes together, and you can be where I am.
Yeah, well,
literally is that.
But I'm not allowed in your garage. You just said so.
Well, now that we've done this, you can.
Okay. So, but when you're working,
we've opened some doors.
You've opened my door. Yeah, we're fine.
Myself, when I'm building something with raw metal, we're not talking about old metal. We're not talking about you're not taking a painted car and refurbishing your raw metal building something. Would you say it's therapeutic?
Yeah. It's confidence building.
Yeah.
When you actually make something, and you can make something pretty fast. As I mentioned during the break, on my Facebook page, Hot Rods in History by Dan, every 6 months I will repost a story I wrote where I have a shrinking stump, and for those who don't know what that is, it's just a stump of wood, and you carve out a bowl in the middle of it. I use a skill saw and a hammer chisel, and I kind of made it smooth out. And you put a piece of steel around it or over top of it, and you can actually make a shape into it. Hammer it. Yeah. So what I did for the example, I got a piece of aluminum because aluminum is just easier than steel because aluminum is mushy and soft. I took a piece of steel and I just hit it with a hammer one time over top of this bowl, and so it crinkles up like a piece of paper would. All these wrinkles. It looks like, okay, I've made junk. Once you've made junk, everything you do to it after is making it better. And 20 minutes of just being stubborn and saying, I'm going to get the wrinkles out and I'm going to put it in the English wheel. And then at the end of the 30 minutes or whatever, there's a bowl. So I take pictures of that exercise like every 3 minutes. As far as here I am with a piece of steel. At the end, here's a bowl. And I post it every 6 minutes on my page, or 6 months on this page, just so people can see that it's not hard. It is just, you have to want to.
And it's a progression. You improve with small incremental steps.
And if you look at something daunting, for example, like say you want to make a 32 Ford Fender, you don't make it in one piece. You break it down into simple shapes you can make. So I remember seeing at R&M Sotheby's in Chatham, they had I think a 33 Jaguar in bare metal. And I was looking at this aluminum. It was all aluminum fender, but it was 11 pieces. from the factory, because back then they hadn't stamped them. They had handcrafted this car. When you look at the 11 fundamental elemental pieces, none of the 11 pieces were difficult to make. You put them all together and you have this Mona Lisa. But getting there, and that's, seeing how the sausage is made, looking behind the curtain. How do these people do these things? Talk to the kid from Pinky's, right? Yeah. How do you make this incredible $1 million car? Well, with a whole collection of $7 pieces of steel. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. So yeah, I mean, anything anyone does as far as a passion or pursuit, whether it's woodworking or photography or building a hot rod in your shop, if it wasn't satisfying, we wouldn't do it. I don't think. I'm weird to think it that way because I get a lot of, like you said, when are you going to finish it? Yeah. My answer is always the same. I don't care, because when it's finished with it, then it's over. I don't want it to be over. Yeah. I mean, my track record is that I build things to a certain point and then I sell them to somebody to move on to the next thing. And I don't have any regrets about anything that's gone, because the 32 I had, I had things I wanted to change. The 50 I was over, right? This 27 is more mine than anything else because it has more of my own creation in it. Yep. So I could sell it when it's over, because when it's over, it's done. It's spent. It's like an old firework. Day after Victoria Day. Well, that was fun while it lasted, but it's over. Someone else will be like, great, I can go cruise around in this. It looks cool. And I can go to a car show and win a trophy. Right. I don't care about any of that. No. I did in 1997 for a little while. If I'm at an event where there's an award or a trophy or anything of that kind, I guess maybe I'm a competitive person. It's totally distracting to me, but in a negative way. Yeah. I start comparing my stuff to other people's stuff, and that's not healthy for anybody, and it's not positive, and I tend to be a glasses half full kind of person. I want to see what you built. I want you to tell me what you built, and I want to shake your hand and say, good job, man. Yeah. That's cool, right? Not, hey, I hope I win. Right. When you go to these indoor shows, the owners who are there and have spent those 6 to 7 figures to win an award, I feel they're missing the point. That's my answer. Yeah. It's an excellent question.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I can totally relate, like car shows. I don't go to car shows for trophies.
No.
I go for the people. Yeah. Right? And the atmosphere. I'm there to talk to the people at the show, see what's new, what they're working on, things like that. Yeah. That's more enjoyable than trying to bring home hardware.
It's a time to interact and meet great people like yourselves, and also hear some great stories, and especially like the historical stories from the older guys, because again, not to plug the page too much, but on Hot Rods and History by Dan, I try and tell as many historical stories as I've ever had the chance to hear, because these stories are rich. The people who tell them aren't getting any younger, but the stories are unbelievable, and they speak to how we got to where we are now. Yeah. For example, the earliest story that I can think of, as far as, like, I grew up in St. Thomas, and Talbot Street is the main drag there, is Art Howdy Green cruised Talbot Street in 1955 in a 32 Ford two-door that he chopped, tacked it back together, no glass, and cruised that night. My point is, I don't know what happened in 50 or 40 or 35. Something happened. I don't know the stories. When the stories aren't passed on, the history is lost. So from my perspective, if I'm going to tell everybody what I know about cruising or automotive culture here, I only know what I've heard, and I only know from people who are still here to tell us the stories. So I can only go back to 55. That's the earliest memory. I have to use my imagination beyond that. Yeah. And I mean...
And I guess that's part of the inspiration from Steve, for doing the podcast here, is to try and capture not only what we're doing in 2026, but to meet folks like yourself and go back in time and learn more about the different parts of the culture. It's not just about car shows. It's not just about pinups. It's the whole
ball of wax.
Ball of wax, exactly.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle choice almost. Yeah. But to keep the stories alive, and actually, the internet is so powerful for that, because I mean, my page isn't huge. It has 750 members, but those folks, if they want to learn about Tommy Ivo or Talbot Street in St. Thomas, I'm telling the stories. If they want to know how to, run an English wheel, I'm showing. If you want to know what channeling a car means, I'm showing. If you want to know how they developed the plastic front bumper for the GTO in '69, I'm telling that story, right? It's just a great place to share. Yeah. And that's what the internet is supposed to be for, I think, is sharing ideas and it's entertainment. None of this is important, really. But it's a passion. It's what keeps us out of trouble.
I want to talk about early gear jammers.
Okay.
And I want to talk about early drag strip.
Okay.
Because they go hand in hand.
late 1950s, St. Thomas, Ontario, the center of the hot rod universe to people like me who are from St. Thomas. I'm sure every little town from Vancouver to Halifax has the same kind of stories. There were a couple car clubs in downtown St. Thomas, and there were some enterprising folks in each of those clubs, and they decided that if we combine our efforts, we can do something great. Let's not be fragmented. Let's gather together. At the same time, and there was local people who were drag racing, but we didn't have a place to drag race here. So people were dragging their stuff to Detroit Dragway. They were dragging their stuff to Kohler Dragway, which wound up being Cayuga, or Toronto Motorsports Park now. They didn't have anything local, but there was enough people involved that they thought we should have something here. I'm sorry, they're also Grand Bend, but they felt they should have something here. We have enough people to support it. So they had a meeting in a shop. And interestingly enough, the McDonald's in St. Thomas on Talbot Street, right where the drive-through window is, or the drive-through speaker where you order your Big Mac, that's where this barn was, right there. And if you can imagine, and so these couple clubs are together in this shop, and they're changing history in that moment where they decided we need to get together and we need to drag race somewhere closer because I'm tired of dragging my car to Detroit or Cayuga. So they make an arrangement with the local airport, St. Thomas Airport, and they make an arrangement. It isn't officially, and it isn't with anyone who actually has the authority to actually grant the permission. I understand this story is all second and third hand, so I wasn't there. So if any of this contradicts with anyone else's version of the story, I'll argue that mine's right, but it may not be. It's just what I've heard. I've also heard that the shop that they met in wasn't actually at the McDonald's. It was closer to Dallarcarn, but not critical to the story, although I'd like to argue about it. So what they did is that summer of 60, they organized drag races on Sundays, and they called themselves the Gear Jammers. And they just cordoned off one of the runways. They built a temporary timing tower, because the rules were you could have a timing tower to measure, and I don't even know if they had a timing system. I know Kohler did. They may have been just, by eye, did they win? I know other people would know that answer better than I would. But they started drag racing. And they charged an admission, and there was a law in Ontario, the Lord's Day Act, where you could not charge admission to things like that on a Sunday. Because Sundays were a different thing back then. It was there were a lot of restrictions. So what they would do, and Al Pimlat told me this story, he says they would actually sell a one-day membership to the Gear Jammers Car Club. So it was basically car club dues to get into this. These are how enterprising these people were. So, and it was a huge success. So my dad was very young at the time, and he lived near Simcoe, and he remembers seeing flyers and stuff as far as Simcoe. These guys were really good at advertising and marketing, and so he knew about it, even though he never went. And so 1960 turned into 1961. They're in their second year. I think it's going great. And I think it was August of 61. They had finally gotten enough membership fees to actually afford trophies. So they had the first set of trophies this one day and on a Sunday. And it was a hot Sunday. And so they were racing. They gave away the trophies. They felt like they were really growing. But they were so tired at the end of the day that they actually left the timing tower adjacent to the runway. The agreement was they had to actually pull the tower away after the races and hide it somewhere. I think it was on skids or something. So what they did is they left it there, as being young men who were tired. They just forgot it and they left. But during the week, there was a member of Ontario Parliament landed on that runway. I think it was the Minister of Transportation. And they had to do a little evasive maneuver to get around this timing tower. And so the person asked, "What's going on?" And so the jig was up. That was their last. So they gave away the trophies, but they now needed to find a plan B. So we're going to segue into Doug Kennington, who was a member. And Kennington is sort of a famous name in drag racing, and DJ Kennington has done very well he's even raced in Daytona. I mean, he's done very well. But his father worked for a company called Towers Cleaners. And so he was very well known in the community, and he knew a lot of people. And he actually was able to connect with a farmer, Mr. Harvey in Sparta. And he sort of made the pitch to him, "Hey, if we could have a little strip of your cornfield for drag racing, we'll give you a cut of the gate." And to convince them, they actually brought him to Detroit. They went on a little tour to the drag races in Detroit on a Sunday. A couple Gear Jammers and Mr. Harvey. And while the guys were watching the races and watching the action on the track, Mr. Harvey was counting the heads in the stands and the concession stand, and thought this might work out for me. Yeah. This will be okay. Okay, gear jammers, you can have this strip. I will pay for the asphalt and things, but you guys got to do it. You got to make it. Yeah. Okay. So the excavation was done by the Waters brothers near Springfield, who owned an excavation company. They actually had a race car, so they had a vested interest. Yeah. Charlie Birdsey, one of the gear jammers, built the timing tower.
The timing tower is still there, right?
Yeah, it's now on the east side, but it was sort of state of the art when he built it. And it's funny, it said St. Thomas Dragway on the front of the tower, but the actual letters were ceiling tiles from his parents' basement that he had taken and cut letters out of. And Charlie was a really ambitious guy, and he built it during a week, but he actually slept in it while building it for that week. So they knocked it out. So by, was it June or Canada Day in 1962, it was finally ready. And they had received NHRA designation. They had a representative for the NHRA, I think from Indiana or Ohio. I think it was Indiana. They came up and said, yeah, you guys are certified to go. And they had a big ceremony, and they had press. And that's how it all started. And there's a wonderful photo. I think most people around in this region have seen it. Maybe we could post it. Of the gear jammers on that day. They're all wearing the white outfits, looking really professional. And
the one with the clown.
The one with the clown.
Yeah,
Beaky was the clown.
Yeah.
Beaky was the clown. And Beaky got famous later for being Beaky's Corvette Corner. And he had a beautiful LaSalle with Corvette Power years later. But yeah, you can, to a man, you can go through the faces in that iconic picture on that opening day. And everybody went on to do something else that was memorable and notable, at least locally, as far as who we are. Yeah. Now, by 1965, Mr. Harvey had sort of wanted to have a greater control over it. So the gear jammers essentially, dissolved a couple years after that happened. I mean, these were young men who were getting married, and priorities were changing, so it sort of moved on from there. But it's a great story of how a couple small clubs got together and did something great and iconic, and the track is still here. And a lot of people are thankful for that. But it just spoke to both the culture here and the enthusiasm for what we do. And that is my gear jammer story. Now, I learned who Charlie was in the 80s because I wasn't born for any of this. And Al Pimlat, who was the track announcer, I learned about and met in the 80s. And Al always has a great story. Anytime I ever see him at any kind of event, I always challenge him. Tell me a story I don't know, because I know he has 100.
Yeah. And so I started out as a gear jammer before we started Odd Wheel.
Okay.
And so this whole thing kind of, it's funny how it's local area stuff, right? Yeah. And it ties into how things happen. We started out hanging out with the gear jammers, the current gear jammers, and then Odd Wheel started. You and I ended up together. Now we're sitting at this table together talking about the gear jammers and the history and the drag strip. And
yeah, it's great.
Like I'm sure, just like you and I remember sitting at the drag strip Friday night watching Dad make passes. I remember before the drag strip had guardrails.
I remember when there was an event in 1986. It was the final season of St. Thomas Dragway. Financial troubles. This is the last of it. Okay. It's all over. And so we were there. And Harv Humphreys was there with his Model A. First, only ever time I ever saw that run was then for that final event, which, of course, is 40 years ago now. Yeah, the doom and gloom is always there. I remember my dad telling me in 1981, and I remember so vividly, we were at White Oaks Mall in the Canadian Tire in the hardware section. I'm 10 years old, and he says, there's new legislation coming, son. They're going to outlaw hot rods. You're going to have to find something else to be into.
Where have I seen that recently on the internet?
And every year since 81?
Right.
Yeah, so when people say, what are you going to do with this roadster, all this legislation? Well, if you're clever enough to put a car together, then you're clever enough to figure out a way to make it legal. Yeah. Like my 32, it was in the 90s. I had to have an affidavit from a lawyer saying that this was all components I'd paid taxes on in buying them, and the Ontario government assigned me a VIN number. I had to stamp it somewhere on it, and that's how that was done then. That was a long time ago. So when the time comes to actually register the 27, I'll just go to the ministry and find out, what does it need to be? Yeah. What does it have to have? What do I got to do? And I'll do it. Yeah. It's no problem. If you can build a car from scratch, you can put a fender on it or put a bumper on it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. But I just don't think it's ever dying. Which is, I guess, a segue into something you probably want to talk about is the future.
Yes. What do you think the future holds for St. Thomas and surrounding area as far as car culture goes?
I've given this a lot of thought, actually. The person who likes the new performance model, Volkswagen GTI. My daughter's going through a phase right now where she just wants a Golf R or GTI. If you are into modern and current contemporary performance cars, the future's bright.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
If you are dealing with stuff that is difficult, I think that portion of the hobby is in trouble because I don't see anyone else wanting to do the stuff that I do. And it's not a problem for me because I still do what I want to do. And if I stopped tomorrow because I couldn't or whatever, no one's going to really pick up the torch, but maybe it doesn't matter to them. It certainly doesn't matter to me. I think it depends on what you're into. You know what I mean?
I think it's also cyclic. I talk to some younger generations about cars and coffee, like up at Canadian Tire last year.
Yeah.
They're attracted to vehicles that they should not have had any exposure to culturally for their age, but they're drawn to it. So I think there are cycles, tastes.
I was that person.
Yeah.
30 years ago, 40 years ago, where I don't have a physical memory of when Model A's were new.
No.
Or 32s were new. I'm secondhand because of sort of my influence through my dad. If I hadn't had that exposure, I would tell you right now, the IROC Z is the hottest thing in the world. Or a 5-liter Mustang, because that's, what you're into at a certain time, right? And which is why I was drawn to that Mustang at Motorama. I think as long as people have those feelings, those cars will thrive. It's a sliding scale. So I think right now, if you're an empty nester, you remember the IROCs and the 5 liters, and I think there's some value in that. But that will go away as the people who are interested in that retire or don't want to work as hard on a car or anything. And then they'll buy something like my parents. They got rid of the Model A. They are now shopping around for something that's a little easier to drive. Audi TT, Nissan 350Z, something that's, you can ride on the 401 and it's got airbags, nice and safe, turn on the AC. It's a sliding scale. Yeah. So in conclusion, the difficult stuff is sort of waning and going away. And it's a sliding scale. And I do see the value of some of those things that used to be sky high is starting to diminish. And there are people who are inheriting their parents' special interest car that don't want them. I do, but I feel I'm in the minority. So I think that the Facebook marketplace or the Auto Trader is going to start filling up with some of these special interest things where there's going to be a lot of them and not as many buyers as we would hope. Yeah. As you get into more modern cars, and I know IROC Z is 40 years ago, but into the 90s, I remember like at Motorama, there was a couple Honda Civics there that were 25 years old. That is nostalgia. Yeah. Because I remember when they were new, and I thought they were cool, and then I took some pictures of them. So in conclusion, it's a sliding scale. Automotive enthusiasm will remain strong. It may be EV. It probably won't be 32 Ford. As long as I can play with my stuff, then I'm fine with it. We can try and make different generations carry on our torch, but maybe they have their own torch. Yeah. And let them carry that.
So how do you feel about the population that has, barns full of really cool stuff?
I have seen the collections you describe. I don't think that's a large number of people who do that.
Yeah, so the percentage is small.
I haven't done the studies. I don't have the math, but I don't think a lot of people are doing that. But if I have a collection, that does something for me. But if I'm looking for a satellite, that guy is not the only guy who has a satellite. I think if I'm a younger person and want to try and do something with an older car, a bigger challenge is, do I have the skills? Can someone show me? Can I afford to? And honestly, with legislation and insurance companies, and I don't mean to sound like it's early 70s again, but it's never been harder. Anyone who has a car that's more than 20 years old that's driving around, you see them going by, they really want to be driving it. They have to fight for it. Everything is pushing back against them. In short, the future is, I think, more modern.
Now, I will say this year at Motorama, I had a pretty significant amount of young people. So Friday's the school day. I had a pretty significant amount of kids come up to me and say, how do I get into the classics? How do I start? I don't know where to start. And my response was the same every time. I said, find your local car club, approach them. They're going to push you in that right direction. A particular car club comes to mind that's local to us that, brought in a young guy and showing him these tricks of the trade. How okay, this is how you're gonna you want to weld, this is how you weld. We're going to teach you these things, and we're going to get you to the point where you're going to take on that project now, right? And he's now transitioned into looking at things a different way and approach it. Now, is that demographic huge? I don't know, but I do see it, right? The kids are curious, they don't know where to start. Right.
That's a great answer for them, and it's very encouraging, which is part of the reason why your organization, the Outback Car Club, has done so well, so quickly, is to be that opening and welcoming. I would say there are more tools available via things like YouTube
Yeah.
and social media to show you how to do some things. But when it's actually sitting in your shop or in your driveway, it can be a little daunting, for sure. If you don't have someone to, guide your hand and say, hey, this is the best way to go.
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube did a lot for me with the Pontiac, but I can say just as much as helpful as YouTube and the internet and all the access to information was.
Having somebody else next to you, guiding you, talking to you about it.
Walking in and being like, hey, I got this problem. And then boom, boom, boom. Hey, okay, let's come by the house and figure it out. Or I know exactly what your problem is. I dealt with that. Here's, sometimes that interaction with that generation is, you can't put a price on how beneficial it is. Charlie's a great example of that.
Let's take 5 minutes on Charlie Birdsey. First of all, if you ever spoke to Charlie Birdsey, nothing was ever brief. He, a very wordy gentleman, had a lot to say. I didn't meet him during the first generation of Charlie Birdsey. He was a gear jammer. He had a hot Model A. Went to Arthur Voden Secondary School, St. Thomas. I met him in the mid-'80s when, after having daughters, he was rediscovering hot rods. Right. He had a cool 41 Chevrolet, and we met him at a local car event. And we, as family, my family and the Birdsey family, actually went to a lot of events together in the late 80s, early 90s, all the U.S. ones, during my formative, what kind of 32 am I going to build? And at the same time, he was building progressively more difficult cars, which I admired. And they were beyond things that I could do, but I learned a lot. He built a turbo Buick V6 Model A, which was really cool. Came from Tilsonburg. Then he built a car called Creamy, which was a Model A sedan delivery. Competed for the Riddler. He made the grade 8.
Yep.
Was the only person I know who ever made the grade 8 in Detroit. That was his high watermark. And through the 90s, he continued to build another succession of great cars. But he's the one who introduced me to the love of early drag racing, because he had the old 8mm films, which I think you've seen as well.
A little bit of.
Wow. And so that's when I discovered that. And I really love that period of drag racing, and I owe that to him. Through, the recent decades, we lost him, I think, a year and a half ago now. Yeah. But he was a real icon locally here, and he's missed already. Had a big impact on me. He's the one who taught me how to do sculpted tweed interior in the 90s, right? That was something I learned from him. I learned about details. I remember when he had Creamy done, and we were going to some shows like the Good Guys Indianapolis. He wanted to win a pros picks, so he knew that I knew who everybody was. Dan, show me which guy's Posey, which guy's Boyd. He wanted to meet all these guys so he could show him his car, so he was very proud. So I was really glad to be able to give back to him in that way, as far as making those introductions and setting up those meetings with those folks so that he could have that moment of creative high watermark for him. So Charlie was great, and we remember him, and I try and recognize him on my Facebook page, where we just talk about these things like we've talked about today. These were local icons, and I like to keep the icons remembered because they affect where we came from and where we're going.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And their stories are worth remembering. I mean, Art Howdy Green with that 55 Chev in 1950, or 32 Ford in 1955, my earliest memory or story of St. Thomas, passed away a couple years ago. He actually was at the retirement community at the end of my street. So I would go and see him, and we would share stories. He had better stories than I did. But that's what my page is about. So if anyone wants to hear some of these stories, we're there.
Well, I love that you hang on to history. I love that you're educating the next generation. It's important beyond, you can't tell me how important it is. It's just...
Appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, there's such a rich history here, and what you do is just so beneficial for everybody, right?
Well, that's really nice, guys. I appreciate it. I put a lot of effort into it. I always try and put something there every couple of days if there's something that I remember or something that comes up.
Welcome. Well, thanks for joining us.
Of course. It's been a pleasure.
So if somebody wants to meet you, they want to talk to you, get a story in person, how is it going to happen?
In person's tough. I'm usually locked in the shop. But Hardwise in History by Dan, join us there. You can private message me. We can have a chat.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for coming, man.
You bet. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.